Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg regular council meeting for January 10th, 2023 to order. The time is 7:30 p.m. We are at the Twinsburg Government Center Council Chambers. Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mrs. Labby?
Here.
Mr. Deeds?
Here.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Perfect, thank you. At this time, I would like to ask Mayor Scafidi to lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance this evening. Mayor?
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this new year and this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that affect all of our residents and businesses and our dedicated city employees. Bless those away from us serving to protect our country. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to item number 3, which is approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting December 13th, 2022. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? And if so, is there any discussion regarding the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Mr. Fury made a motion. Is there a second?
I will second. Yield.
Oh,
Yield.
Mrs. Walker seconds. Any further discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Abstain.
Mr. Barr?
Yes. Approval of the minutes passes 6-0. All right, moving on to awards and presentations. Tonight, we have the privilege of publicly swearing in Mr. Jeff Deeds. So let's, oh, look at this. We got live via Zoom. This is a big deal. Come on down front, Mayor. Turn the show over to you.
They are. All right. All right. Raise your right hand. After the word I, say your name and repeat after me. I
I, Jeffrey Deeds,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
and the laws of the United States of America,
and the laws of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
Charter, ordinances, and resolutions of the City of Twinsburg,
Charter, ordinances, and resolutions of the City of Twinsburg,
Ohio,
Ohio,
and I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties as a member of council
discharge the duties as a member of council
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
as I shall answer to God.
as I shall answer to God.
Thank you. Congratulations.
You have to give a
Looking
speech
kids
now.
up there.
It's like 6 minutes at least.
I'll keep it short. I'll keep it short. First of all, to all the residents of Ward 1 and the city of Twinsburg, I just want to say that I'm humbled, and I am very privileged to serve my city, and I very much appreciate that. I would like to introduce my family. My wife Sharon in the front row, my better half. And thank you for always pushing me to be the best person that I could be. I really mean that. My 3 children are up here on the wall. I'll start, upper left is Jared. Jared's in, I'm gonna be a proud dad for a second, if that's okay.
Sure.
Jared's in law school right now at William & Mary in Virginia. Bottom left is my daughter Alyssa. Alyssa's at High Point University and she'll be graduating this spring. That's down in North Carolina. And then bottom right is Justin. Justin graduated from Ohio State in accounting last May, and he is working down in North Carolina for Honda as an accountant. Awesome. And I thank you guys for your encouragement in making this process very fun. With that being said, I got a couple other thank yous, and then I'll let this go. I would like to thank the staff and my fellow councilmen. I really look forward to working with all of you day in and day out. I think this is going to be very rewarding, and I really appreciate your faith in me in giving me the vote. Mayor Scafidi, I thank you for giving up your Ward 1 seat. You know, some people, if you take a look back several months and you see, you know, Mayor Yates left, Mayor Scafidi got voted in. I happen to live in Ward 1. Mayor Scafidi, his seat was in Ward 1. Some people might call me lucky, and I would agree with that. But then I also, I like that there's a quote, and it says, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And I also feel that I'm very prepared for this. And I just want to thank you all. I want to say to the people of Twinsburg, I really look forward to serving you. And with that, let's get to work.
All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Mr. Deeds. Looking forward to working with you as well, sir.
Yes.
All right. Any other presentations this evening?
There are none.
Okay. Audience participation. Shannon, do we have any speakers this evening?
We do. We have a few. First, we have Bob Hughes.
Okay. Mr. Hughes?
Good evening again, Council and Mayor. I'd like to speak briefly about the discussion you had on the zoning. I made a suggestion before when you originally were talking about it that you do it in pieces rather in one big chunk. Councilman Fury's right. You got 200 pages of zoning code. It'll be very, very difficult for the electorate to absorb that. There's nothing you can do, even if you have meeting after meeting after meeting, to absorb it. My suggestion is you give it to them piece by piece, especially since there's a couple things that have happened. In particular, there's been some loss of confidence in this council because of the whole old milk situation, and particularly 100% lost in distrust in your law director. So I'm just saying, from that standpoint, you have to overcome that if you want this thing to be passed, and you got to understand where you stand. My suggestion is that you take it in pieces and pass it in pieces, and you'd be better off than trying to pass 200 pages of legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Chuck Bonacci.
Mr. Bonacci, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Council, Mayor Scafidi. I'm here to talk about the importance of boards and commissions. And there's an opportunity to apply for boards and commissions, and there's 30 seats, maybe 32-ish.
Yep.
I'm not very good at the math part of things, but there's a couple dozen spots that need to be filled. And it's rewarding to serve on a board and commission. And I get the privilege of serving on the Environmental Commission for a number of years and to make good things happen for the city. I had a good friend that also served on the commission. It's going to be tough. And Mike Gillen was on the Architectural Review Board. And he took that role extremely seriously. And I hope that those that are applying to be on this commission take the role, their opportunity to serve the city, as seriously as Michael took it. Michael went out to every site that was before the Architectural Review Board. He took pictures of it, learned about the property, learned about how that would fit in, used his skills as a craftsman and a tradesman to serve on that commission. Unfortunately, Michael passed away in December. I went to his calling hours, and there were all kinds of things that demonstrated what Michael stood for. Pictures of his daughter, pictures of his girlfriend, Hot Rod Roddy Piper, Slayer. His sister was wearing a Motorhead t-shirt. It was legit. It was everything I knew about Michael. And on the dais, in the most prominent of spots there could be, there was an ID badge that said Michael Gillen, Architectural Review Board. And there's an opportunity for others to serve in the capacity of a board or commission member. I want everyone that's interested in having an engagement and being part of the positivity that the city represents to think about where they would fit, to apply for that, and put forth the tenacity and respect for the role the same way Michael put forth for his. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck. Very well said.
That's all I have this evening.
Springboarding off that, Mr. Bonacci, thank you for your words. We did, the city of Twinsburg suffered a pretty significant loss in the passing of Mr. Gillen. He was a friend that I knew long before my time on city council, actually long before my time even living in the city of Twinsburg. And it's a tragic loss. I feel for his daughter, his girlfriend, and his entire family. So it's, thank you for sharing. I appreciate it, Chuck. Okay, council communication and committee reports. Daisy, would you like to start this evening? Good evening.
Yes, I would. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. We did have our JEDI meeting yesterday, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And these are some of the things that we're going to sponsor. You know, JEDI is proud to sponsor 2 community events in celebration of Black History Month. On Monday, February 13th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in the City Council Chambers, the Justice and Policing Subcommittee of JEDI has organized an evening with Chief Mason and friends. The panel of discussion featuring Chief Mason and additional Twinsburg Police Department personnel will be facilitated by Jeff Tyus. And his position on JEDI, you know, he's over the policing part of that. Chair of the Justice and Policing Subcommittee, questions will be solicited from the community in advance of the discussions and answered by Chief Mason and his colleagues. We anticipate being able to not only address our community's concern around justice and policing, but to also reassure the community that our Twinsburg Police Department is well equipped and well trained to meet the needs of our community in a fair and just way. Also on Wednesday, February 22nd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m., the JEDI Committee has partnered with the Twinsburg Public Library to present Twinsburg JEDI Committee Understanding Equity. We will provide an overview of the inception of the committee, along with the mission and 2023 goals of the committee, followed by a presentation on equity by a featured speaker. This event will be held at the Twinsburg Public Library, and that's on February 22nd, 6:30 p.m. As 2023 continues, JEDI anticipates scheduling additional events within the community, both solely sponsored by JEDI and in partnership with other Twinsburg community organizations. We do appreciate the support of the mayor and city council and look forward to continuing our work to benefit the citizens of the city of Twinsburg. Thank you. That's all I have.
Can I ask a question? February 13th, did you say a time and location, or did I miss that?
I said on Wednesday,
Here.
February 22nd.
No, the 13th.
The 13th, was that here?
Yes.
Mhm. Yes.
Yes.
6:30?
6:30.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just missed that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Walker. I appreciate you sharing those important events with us.
Yes, thank you.
Mrs. Labby, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to piggyback on that, what Mrs. Walker said. I was also in attendance last night at the Jedi Committee, and they're really making strides this year to get things done. Questions for Chief Mason, if you want to put it on the Together Twinsburg website to direct your questions there, and then they'll be analyzed and questions will be directed to Chief Mason. The ARB met twice since our last meeting. They were very saddened by the passing of Board Member Michael Gillen and send their deepest condolences because they had become very close with him. And he was going to reapply this year, and they were looking forward to working with him in the future. We met on 12/15, case number 221165. For a new mausoleum at Crown Hill Cemetery was approved. On 1/5/23, case number 230101, a sign for Serve and Finesse on Darrow Road was approved. Case number 230102 for roof alteration was tabled due to, until drawings are submitted by the applicant. Twinsburg Parks and Rec News. Twinsburg Community Theater has been nominated for 6 Broadway World Cleveland Awards for their fall production of Disney and Cameron Macamix, Mary Poppins. It was Mary Poppins. Winners will be selected this month, so that's a great honor for them. Twinsburg Water Park passes are now on sale at the Fitness Center. Preseason rates available until May 26th. And in Senior News, registration for the Ladies' Tea, Friday, January 27th at 1 o'clock, is ongoing now. Bring your favorite teacup. The next meeting for ARB will be 1/19, 6 o'clock in Chambers. Twins Days meets tomorrow in the Twins Days office at 7 o'clock. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Labby. Mr. Post, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Thank you. So a few things here. I did attend the Planning Commission meeting on December 19th where the Greenbridge Tea House stole the show. They had the whole night to themselves, which is very nice for you guys. They want to build a 2-story deck off the side of the building there on the side by the church on the north side. The first floor will be for commercial use and the second floor will be for residential use. And the Planning Commission did vote 4-0 for a conditional use permit, and they also approved 4-0 the site plan. And I'll be making a couple motions at the end there for those. Also, well, that's it for my committees there. The Golf Advisory will be meeting January 17th at 6:30, and the next Planning Commission meeting is January 23rd at 7 o'clock in the council chambers as well. Oh, well, that's it, yeah.
Okay.
All right, and that's it. That's my reports for my committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Post. Mr. Deeds, good evening.
Good evening. I guess it's my turn.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I was in attendance at the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting on Wednesday, December 21st. Appeal 08-2022 was heard to install a concrete pad addition to a driveway on the side of a home on Maryville Drive. The result of that was a unanimous approval by all EZA members in attendance. And then the second case that was heard was appeal number 09-2022, which was a request to construct a 4-foot tall adobe colored vinyl fence from the required black, dark brown, or green colored fence. The result of that was a unanimous approval for the adobe colored fence.
Okay.
That was all that was heard at that meeting, and the next meeting will be February 22nd at 6:30. There was no safety committee meeting since I've been in office here, so the next meeting will be March 14th. There was no community relations meeting, And Mrs. Walker and Mrs. Labby reported on Jedi, which I was a part of last night, so I think that's all taken care of. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. And again, during the new business, you'll be making the motion to waive the appeal, the 30-day waiting period on appeal 0922, correct?
Correct.
All right, wonderful. Look forward to that. Mr. Bellin, good evening.
Good evening, thank you. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season and that 2023 is off to a great start. I also had the misfortune of attending the wake of Mike Gillen. As Mr. Bonacci pointed out, he was a member of the ARB, he was a Ward 5 resident, and he was a friend. I had a conversation, I had this whole thing, Chuck, and you surpassed anything that I would have said, so I'm not going to bother. I will pass along, I had a conversation with Mike's father. And you're right, his badge was right there, prominently displayed. And I introduced myself, and I told him, you know, I'm a member of City Council. And his dad kind of lit up. And he said, I don't know why he loved it, but he loved it. He loved being involved, and he loved being on ARB and those kind of things. And it was just the amount of people there was a testament to Mike. And Twinsburg lost a good one. So may he rest in peace. None of my committees have met since our last meeting. The Finance Committee will meet on Tuesday, January 24th. Public Works meeting will meet on Tuesday, February 14th. And the Safety Committee will meet on Tuesday, March 14th. Nothing further this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bellin. Mr. Fury, good evening.
Thank you and good evening. The CIC will meet this Thursday at 5 p.m. Our next finance meeting will be the 24th at 6:30. And none of my other committees have met. And that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Since our last meeting, none of my committees have met. Mr. Fury and Mr. Bellin both touched on finance and public works. And Mr. Deeds mentioned that public safety is coming up here in March, so we do have some meetings coming up over the next 90 days. Again, I just echo everybody's sentiments. May Mike rest in peace. I know I'm going to miss him, and I know that, again, the city suffered a loss. That is all I have this evening. Mr. Scafidi, Mayor, do you have a report?
I just have a couple things. Thank you. Good evening and Happy New Year to everybody. It's 2023, and I'm looking forward to a really good year for all of us and for the city of Twinsburg. A couple things that I wanted to mention real quick. I did attend on our short holiday break the senior holiday party and the Light the Night party. Both parties were a great success, attended by many, many people. And once again, they did a really good job. All the organizers and all the people that work behind the scenes on those things, they do a really good job of putting those two events together. So shout out to all of them. And it's just nice to be able to spend time during the holidays with our seniors and those that celebrate the Hanukkah holiday. One thing I wanted to talk about real quick, I am planning our annual State of the City address. I don't have the date yet. It'll be coming up probably the end of February, maybe the beginning of March. I'm hoping to hold it at Aaron and Moses as we typically do in the morning. It'll be a morning event. And this year I'm looking to switch it up a little bit. So it's not going to be the typical State of the City address that any of you that have attended or watched it on TV have been used to seeing. So we're going to do a little different flair to it, and hopefully it gets a really good message across and everybody enjoys it. I do want to mention one thing. Our Twinsburg Community Theater. Twinsburg Community Theater has been nominated for 6 Broadway World Cleveland Awards. The first production back from COVID was Mary Poppins, and the 6 awards that they received were, the first one was for Best Musical, the second one was Best Performer in a Musical, and we had 2 folks in there, David Luddick and Hallie St. John. Our Best Supporting Performer was Karen Graves. Our Best Director in a Musical was Joe Turner. Our Best Scenic Design of a Play or Musical was Chris Herrick. And our Best Musical Direction and Orchestra Performance was Ellie Kelly. So shout out to those guys in the Twinsburg Little Theater. They did a great job in winning those awards, and we appreciate them and thank them for all their hard work. Finally, the pool. Our pool passes, I know it's a little early, but the pool will open on May 27th, and our pool passes, the preseason, are on sale right now, so you can get your tickets now for preseason, and they are at a discounted rate. Finally, I want to mention something that I did just before the holidays. I had a young man come up to me, and he just somehow was really involved in politics. He's 5 years old. And he was very proud of the fact that he voted. More importantly, he voted for me, for mayor. He came outside of the polls and just walked right up to me and looked at me and said, "I voted for you." And I said, "Well, that's awesome, thank you." And so he went to school and he was just bragging about how he voted for the mayor. So much that the parents got a call from the teacher and said, "Did that Scafidi guy win? Because this kid's saying that he voted for the mayor." And, we all know how the end of that. Anyway, so I had him come in. I wanted him to come in and be able to sit down in the mayor's office because he was so excited. And I had him sit behind the mayor's desk, and I gave him a little plaque that said, I nominated him the junior mayor of the day at 5 years old. And he sat behind my desk. Do we have anything on that, Mark? You don't have his picture? All right, I thought we were going to flash his picture up there, but it was a nice morning for this young man, Angelo Carciopolo Jr. I guess he is a junior. That's who came in, and then we set up for him to go to the police department and to the fire department, and he got to go through both of those departments and see how that operates. He got to see the jail. He got to look at the fire trucks, and he just had a great morning and was just so excited about everything. His parents sent me another message just the other day and said he cannot stop talking about this. He's just elated over it. So it was really a nice thing and well worth it for little Angelo Carciopolo. So that's it. That was my little Christmas story.
That's wonderful.
And that's the end of my report.
All right.
Thank you.
Do we have any department heads this evening?
We have one,
Chief, good evening.
or two. We have Sarah over there.
All right.
Good evening. For the month of December, the fire department responded to 341 calls for service. That brought us to a total of 3,789 for the year, which is an 11% increase over last year. And just for context, over the last 20 years, the average increase from year to year, there's been ups and downs, but generally on an upward trajectory, it's been about 2.5% to 3% increase year over year. In the last 2 years combined, we've experienced a 24% increase in call. So, not sure where that's going, but just to let you know, again, our personnel are working really hard and doing a lot of work. In conjunction with that, this year we're on pace to bring in about $250,000, maybe $300,000 more in EMS billing than we have in previous years as well. So
What's that total number? It used to be 450?
it's going to be near probably 650,
Thank you.
675, somewhere in that neighborhood. Again, depending on where the month of December works out. But anyway, the guys have been busy, and beyond that, in the fire prevention, we've completed 43 inspections during the month of December, and we also worked on 6 fire investigations during the course of the month. Completed 72 training sessions, totaling almost 400 hours of training for our personnel, including sending 5 of our newer officers through IS 300 and IS 400 classes, which are command and control classes that are required by the feds. They're required by the feds.
All right.
And I'm the acronym's escaping me at the moment, but anyway, so we had 5 of our newer officers complete those courses. So I regularly report on our weather warning sirens and the performance or lack thereof in the monthly test. So we tested on January 7th, and there were only 2 units out of 9 that functioned properly. So we do have to talk about what we want to do with this system. But I do want to assure everyone and remind everyone that, remember, the purpose for those weather warning sirens is to alert people that are outside away from their homes. Most of us are now carrying electronic devices that will get the messages about severe weather long before those weather warning sirens ever spin and wind up. So I just want to assure everyone that there's still methods for warning. We just have to at some point decide what we want to do with this system, if we want to continue it or put it to rest. It's an old technology, and so it's something that has to be decided on here in the near future. There's still some projects going on within the stations. We continue to wait on some parts to complete the installation of the CCTV system at both stations and access controls at both stations, as well as the monitoring of our alarm systems. So that project is ongoing, and also the remodeling of the kitchen, the downstairs kitchen at Station 1. Station 1, we have 2 kitchens. Downstairs is the administrative break room area, but also get used for public events, and the upstairs kitchen. So this is the downstairs kitchen that's being replaced. It was originally built in '79, and there's not been much done to it since, so it was time. And we've also had some work started on completed an ongoing issue with drainage in our bay floors at Station 1, which included digging up part of the floor to expose some piping, and we continue to have a metal plate laying on over the hole because we don't have permission to spend money yet to buy concrete to pour in the hole. So hopefully that'll be coming soon. But the service department is doing a great job of diagnosing that issue, mapping out the system, which we didn't have good drawings for, and now we have a plan to move forward and make some fixes that have been long overdue. The fleet is being taken care of, but we are having some maintenance issues with a couple of our med units. We were down to 2 operating med units for a while during the holidays, and unfortunately we're anticipating replacement of those 2 units, but we just got word today that the delivery of the chassis for those units has been backed up. Originally anticipated for March, we may not see them until July at this point. So that moves the delivery of the new med units off another 4 months. So that's concerning, but we'll do the best we can with what we have. And I think that completes my report at this time.
Perfect, thank you. So Chief, we've got a safety committee meeting coming up in March, not that we necessarily want to wait that long, but we should maybe talk about weather warning sirens, the cost to keep them, the cost of alternatives. I mean, I tend to agree with you that anytime there's bad inclement weather, I get the push alerts through the city, and half of the weather apps that we all have, everybody's phones light up and go crazy. So and I think it's worth a discussion at safety committee. And kind of maybe parse through all the particulars and come up with a game plan, maybe some recommendations to council and administration.
Sure, we can work on that.
All right, great, thanks. Anyone have anything for Chief? Oh, Mr. Deeds?
Yeah, I saw a piece on the news the other day about the increase in calls in all fire departments, not just in, and I think it was in North Royalton, police or fire chief that they interviewed, but they talked about Twinsburg also having everyone in Northeast Ohio is having the same phenomena. Yeah. But they didn't have anything to attribute it to. Is there anything that, in your mind, that you could attribute this to?
Not 11%
is a big increase.
Last year's increase, I think we attribute it mainly to COVID and the results of that, and ultimately not COVID directly, but the indirect impact of people not taking care of their health because they were, the hospitals are still broken. So that continues to be an issue. We can't really put our finger on any specific thing, although continue to. I think I've mentioned it before, and we'll mention it again. Twinsburg's population is aging faster than the national norm, than even the Summit County norm, as a result of our nursing homes and senior living facilities and things of that nature, and that impacts us pretty directly. So it just, health issues. You look at our stats, fire calls, and things of that nature are pretty flat. It's the EMS side of things that's generating all the business.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief. Mrs. Butchie-Gross, good evening.
Good evening, Council. So we are working to close out the 2022 books in finance, and so as soon as we get 2023 open, fire will be good to purchase all of the things that they need. 2023 permanent appropriations we're working on as soon as we get through that as well. This month at Finance Committee, we will have Parks and Recreation and Golf go over their 2023 budget requests and any changes from the temporary budget. We'll have those meetings in February and March as well. Income tax collections, they ended very well for 2022, so we'll talk about that at a future Finance Committee meeting. We're just going to be on the watch for refunds this year to see how it gets hit, because we're at January 10th right now. We've already received over $130,000 in refund requests, so tax filing season hasn't even started yet. So we'll see how that goes. On the IT side of things, we are in discussions on some major projects that we'd like to get done in 2023. So once we figure out what we're going to be able to accomplish this year, we'll bring that probably to Finance Committee as well, because there'll be some costs that go along with what we're able to accomplish. And that's all I've got for tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Moving on to legislation for this evening. We have a few pieces. This evening, we'd like to start with Ordinance 91, 2022.
An ordinance accepting the lands and improvements dedicated to public use for the Whispering Woods Phase 3 subdivision, accepting the maintenance guarantee and reducing the performance guarantee accordingly, and declaring an emergency.
All right, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place Ordinance 91, 2022 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I will second.
Ms. Larry, seconds? Any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes?
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
All right, suspension of the three-roll reading passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make the motion to adopt Ordinance 91, 2022 as an emergency. May I have a second? Mrs. Walker seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
All right, Ordinance 91, 2022 passes as an emergency, 7-0. Moving on, Ordinance 01, 2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the Legal Defender's Office of Summit County, Ohio, to provide the representation of indigent defendants.
All right, now there was discussion during council that we were going to perhaps amend this ordinance to pass it, possibly as an emergency. So with that said, is there any discussion regarding Ordinance 01, 2023?
Get the-
Or do I have to make a motion to, okay. So this time I'd like to make a motion to adopt Ordinance 01, 2023.
I'll get there.
Well, you need to suspend the three readings.
Right, but you got to add the emergency clause before you suspend the 3 readings. It's not on there, so he's got to bring the thing to, he's got to get a motion so that we can discuss it. And then
Okay,
under
yeah.
discussion, I'm going to offer an amendment. We'll do it. I got it.
All right.
Thank you.
So with that said,
I second this motion.
all right, so we're making a motion to adopt Ordinance 01, 2023. Mr. Fury seconds the motion. Is there discussion about motion on the floor?
Per our discussion earlier this evening, I'd like to make a motion to add our standard emergency clause to ordinance 01, 2023. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any discussion on the emergency clause?
The reason I would like to add to the emergency clause is that this is a standard agreement that we do every year to provide public defenders for people that are arrested. And if we don't put in an emergency, it will not go into effect probably until the middle of March. This way it goes into effect now and be much cleaner, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, Shannon, please call the roll on the amendment.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Barr.
Yes. The amendment to ordinance 01-2023 passes 7-0. Being that this would be on its third and final reading pending our current emergency language, at this time I would like to make a motion to suspend the 3-reading rule of ordinance 01-2023 and place it on its third and final reading as an emergency. May I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion on the emergency clause? Hearing none, Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
The emergency, the suspension of the 3-reading rule passes 7-0. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 01-2023 as amended as an emergency. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion on the amended emergency ordinance? Hearing none, Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby.
Yes.
Ordinance 01-2023 passes as amended as an emergency. Moving along, ordinance 02-2023.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an LPA federal local let project agreement with ODOT, establishing the requirements for the federal funds associated with the Cannon Road resurfacing project from Ravenna Road to Liberty Road and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and place ordinance 02-2023 on its third and final reading. May I have a second?
I will second.
Mrs. Labby seconds. Any discussion on the emergency? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds,
Yes.
Mr. Fury,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
And suspension of the 3-reading rule passes 7-0. This time I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 02-2023 as an emergency. May I have a second? Mrs. Walker seconds. Any further discussion on this?
I have a question.
Mr. Deeds, yes, sir.
I was reading through this and I believe that the government, the federal government is paying 80% of the cost of this resurfacing?
I'm looking
Yes.
right now, I believe
Is that
that is
correct?
accurate. Yes, sir.
First of all, how did we get to 80%? And secondly, is it typical that we get that amount of money for a project like this?
We apply for grants. We applied for a grant, and it's typical that we do get funding on major road programs when it's available.
For 80%?
Often 50%, 80%.
Who applied for the grant on this?
The
Amy
city
Moore.
engineer.
She left. didn't she?
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to thank her publicly because I think that's a great thing. To
Absolutely.
get 80% of the cost of that paid by the government.
Right, which, to your point, Mr. Deeds, is approximately $540,000 of $675,000 of the total estimated cost of the project. So absolutely hats off. to
Not
this.
not a bad day's work.
Not a bad day's work, no, sir.
Okay, that's all.
Absolutely. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Post,
Yes.
Mr. Deeds,
Yes.
Mrs. Labby,
Yes.
Mr. Bellin,
Yes.
Mr. Fury.
Yes.
All right, ordinance 02-2023 passes an emergency 7-0. Now I'd like to move on to unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. Mr. Post, would you start us off this evening? I believe you have some new business.
I would love to. I actually have a few things to talk about. I also want to, just talk real quick about Mike Gillen. He was a friend for a very, very long time. He was my daughter's coach. We were very close. There was a gentleman who attended the Rotary meeting last week who was also a very good friend of Mike's. And he came to the Rotary meeting. He says, he says, I look at my good friend who passed away so quickly, And he says, I realize life is short, and I always talk about doing things. And he says, so here I am doing something. So we came to the Rotary meeting, and you know, I hope with everything bad, people find good somehow. And life is short, and I hope that we all find happiness every day. And if there's something you want to do, do it, because you never know. So that's all I want to say to that. So do something good for yourself. That's number one. Number two, I did also attend the Hanukkah party. It was the largest Hanukkah party attendance we've ever had in probably, I don't know how long, 8-10 years we've been doing this? I don't even know, something like that. This was packed. It was packed, which was awesome. And, you know, everyone had a good time. And, you know, I'm just so happy that the community comes out for that. And Jennifer, you do such a good job. If you're listening, you do such a good job, and you make so much happen in this community. So thank you for all you do for that, because everyone really enjoyed it. So I want to say thank you for that. Next, I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, and he says, David, I need help. By the way, this friend lived in Twinsburg, and he just moved out of Twinsburg into Macedonia a few months ago. And he says, I don't understand my sewer bill. He says, I think something's wrong. And I said, yeah, what's wrong is you moved out of Twinsburg. And he says, I don't understand, it's so expensive. And I said, well, that's normal. I said, how much is it? He says, well, it's like $60 on this month. I said, yep. And I said, I hope, so I told him, and I hope everyone understands here, we have it so good here in Twinsburg for how inexpensive our sewer bill is every month. It comes in roughly $20 a month. And he was like, man, this is $500 a year just for this. And I said, yes. So I want to thank everyone in the sewer department in the city. A long time ago, we decided to build a wastewater treatment plant. Nice job, bravo, because we are all reaping the benefits all these years later. And so I just want to remind everybody, we have it pretty good here. So that's that. Next, I want to make a couple motions. That was Andres, by the way. I want to make a couple motions that we discussed earlier from Planning Commission regarding the Greenbridge, the Greenbridge Tea House. I'm sorry. First motion, I'd like to make a motion for the approval of a site plan for a 2-story veranda and deck at the Greenbridge Tea House located at 9036 Church Street, and as recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their December 19, 2020 second meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a second. Shannon, if you would call roll.
One second. Yeah, Mr. Vazana, I know we had there was some emails floating back and forth about this particular property, and I just wanted to verify that has been addressed, or like, where do we stand? I know there was an issue with the building department, and
No, I think that's a great question. The action tonight is the action that happens prior to any of the building department reviews. So, put another way, when you think about any type of development project, you first have to secure your zoning approvals. That's what council's reviewing tonight. If you receive your zoning approvals, and you're from that, you might also have heard zoning permits, then you move into the building permit stage, where you have to submit building plans that then are reviewed by the building official, here the chief building officer, who will then apply the Ohio Building Code, and our building codes against what is actually going to be constructed. So tonight, your action isn't about building codes or the building details. Your action is a zoning action, and it is a site plan review and a conditional use permit. So it's twofold.
thank you, sir. I appreciate the clarification.
That help, Mr. Bell?
Yes, thank you very much.
Shannon?
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. That motion passes 7-0. I would like to next make a motion for approval of a conditional use permit for outdoor dining at the Greenbridge Tea House located at 9036 Church Street, and as recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their December 19, 2022 meeting. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say we went to the ribbon cutting, and the addition, it would just be a great addition to have outdoor dining in that locale. So I think it's a really good plan.
Thank you. Shannon?
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes?
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Post. Mr. Deeds? Good evening.
Okay.
New business
Good
this
evening.
evening.
Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, I was at the December 21st BZA meeting. There was, and I'd like to read the motion, a motion to waive the 30-day waiting period on BZA Appeal 09-2022. And that is for Mr. and Mrs. Janice to get started on their fence a little bit earlier.
Wonderful. There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Second. All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just to say, very simply, you're supposed to only have certain colored fence there. It was either dark green, black, or dark brown, I believe it was. I have it written down here somewhere. I honestly think after reading through that and with some further discussion, I think that was actually meant for chain link fence, vinyl chain link coated fence, not vinyl plank fence. But in this case, they're doing the nice vinyl plank fence. But I give Mr. Janice credit for being patient and going through the process with us, and I'd like to help them out because I think it's a pretty simple thing.
So we have a motion and a second. This time you just ask the clerk to call roll. We'll go from there.
Mrs. Collins, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Deeds?
Yes?
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Anything else this evening, Mr. Deeds?
No, thank you.
Wonderful. Mr. Bellin?
Mr. Deeds, welcome officially. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Nothing further, sir. Thank you.
Mrs. Walker?
I have nothing.
Mr. Fury?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Mrs. Labby?
I also attended the Light the Night. I thought it was a wonderful program, and the fact that it keeps growing every year, it just lends itself to the diversity in Twinsburg and how welcoming it is to everybody who lives here. So, good job. Done by Parks and Rec and the Temple who are work in conjunction with it.
Chabad. The Twinsburg Chabad.
Welcome, Mr. Deeds. Looking
Thank you.
forward to it.
Mr. Scafidi?
I have nothing further tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Rosanna, anything to add?
Yes, I'd like to welcome Councilman Dietz to the Twinsburg City Council, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Same here.
Mrs. Collins?
Welcome, Mr. Deeds.
Mrs. Bochy-Gross?
Same. Welcome.
There you go.
All right. And again, I will echo my colleague's sentiments. Welcome to council. Enjoy the ride. We have no absent members to excuse. This time, I would like to make a motion for adjournment. Is there a second? Mrs. Walker seconds. Any discussion? Shannon, please call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes?
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
And we are adjourned at 8:24 p.m. Thank you.